If there's something I've noticed a lot of over the years, it's that fans of any sort of media are willing to forgive very heinous things or whitewash/woobify anybody, so long as the character is hot or cool. It can range from Darth Vader to various characters in the universe of Game of Thrones, and even stretches into the animated space. That's what I want to talk about today. A character that I feel like a lot of fans of DreamWorks and Kung Fu Panda are extremely eager to redeem or justify, and that's the character of Tai Lung, the main antagonist of the first film. I've already made a video on whether Tai Lung should have been redeemed, so I'll link that here, but this video is a bit different. I specifically want to analyze why fans seemingly excuse Tai Lung's behavior or think he was justified, and that nothing was his fault. Before I get into that though, I do want to stress that I do love Tai Lung. He was an amazing villain and really hooked me into the franchise once I saw that first movie. I mean, come on. The dude's awesome. Him somehow managing to remain absolutely jacked after being held in a straitjacket for 20 years needs to be studied. Plus, he's a snow leopard. Who doesn't love them? The whole narrative around his life, his relationship with Shifu, his fight against Po, all of that's stellar writing, and I want to make it very clear, I'm not arguing that you shouldn't be a fan of his character. I do, however, think that some fans take this enjoyment out of his story, and instead of seeing what a great villain he made, they bend themselves over backwards to try to justify his behavior. They've conflated a cool antagonist with almost anti-hero-like worship, and those are two very different things. If you've watched my channel for a while, you'll be well aware that I walk into fandom arguments with sheer confidence that astounds even myself. I don't know why I do this. It's like a compulsion, but here I am once again ready to battle against my better judgment. So let's get started on why DreamWorks and Kung Fu Panda fans need to stop simping for Tai Lung. To start, I think it's best if we go through all his character beats as a point of reference for any arguments fans might make in his favour. In Kung Fu Panda 1, we're introduced to two Kung Fu masters, Oogway and Shifu, with the former telling the latter his old apprentice will return for revenge. To combat this, Oogway suggests they choose a dragon warrior to help defeat him. Po comes in and he learns the true history about Tai Lung. How he wasn't just some random student, but the adoptive son of Shifu, who trained relentlessly in the art of Kung Fu. However, Oogway denied him the coveted position of dragon warrior, so he went berserk and attacked their local valley. When he returned, he decided to take the tool reserved only for the dragon warrior by force. However, Oogway defeated him and he was sent to prison. Back in the present, Shifu sent a warning to the personal guards of Tai Lung. Despite this, he escapes and continues on his quest to acquire the dragon scroll and become the dragon warrior. Other more experienced students than Po head to stop Tai Lung, but they too are defeated. Po is officially ordained as the dragon warrior, and the dragon scroll becomes his, even if he doesn't understand it yet. No one with Kung Fu experience seems to, and so Shifu orders the evacuation of the valley and decides to fight Tai Lung on his own. When Tai Lung arrives, he and Shifu battle where he airs all his grievances as his adoptive father. Shifu takes accountability, Tai Lung continues on the same path, and Po comes to the rescue. They then battle it out with Tai Lung learning the dragon scroll secret, only to continue trying to fight Po anyway before he's promptly vaporized. We can then continue with his brief reappearance in Kung Fu Panda 4, where the chameleon summons him from the spirit realm and absorbs his Kung Fu energy, rendering him powerless. Po and his new successor Zhen defeat the chameleon and restore their powers, letting them go back to the spirit realm with Tai Lung giving a half-assed compliment saying he isn't completely useless after all. He also recognizes him as the dragon warrior. That's the gist of Tai Lung's entire story to date, and so now we'll delve into fans' arguments as to why he's actually a sweet little soft boy the entire world shunned. The primary defense for Tai Lung is, of course, Shifu's parenting. Now, I'll be real with you, I'm not defending Master Shifu anytime soon. In fact, I believe I made a video about how he was a terrible mentor years ago. Nevertheless, I do think that people blame Shifu for everything Tai Lung did and act as if he had no free will. Let's recap, shall we? In Tigress's version of the story, Tai Lung showed interest in martial arts, and as he grew, his passion became stronger. According to Tigress, though, it was never enough. At some undetermined point, but presumably by adulthood, Tai Lung became fixated on the dragon scroll, and Shifu undoubtedly filled him with confidence. Then Oogway said no, and Shifu stood by the decision. This is confirmed in Tai Lung's retelling, where Shifu continues to tell him that it was never his decision to make. To me, it comes across as if it was never Shifu's intention to raise Tai Lung to be the dragon warrior. I believe that Tai Lung's impassioned, and so because of his fixation, it seems as though that's what Shifu always wanted, and thus pushed him down that road. I think many fans get this impression, and therefore label Shifu as worse than he actually is. That being said, I do believe that Tai Lung is right about Shifu as well. He explicitly states how he made him train until his bones cracked. I mean, ouch. We already see with the others that he's hypercritical and insanely strict, and that form of Shifu is somehow worse than the one he was with Tai Lung, so who knows how badly he pushed the Furious 5. There's also a case to be made that Shifu would have been so determined for his son to be perfect, as that's what he saw him as, that he pushed him onwards towards an unhealthy level. Tai Lung says that Shifu filled his head with dreams, which, to be perfectly honest, doesn't seem like a bad parenting move to me. Fostering a level of ambition in your child is not a crime, but it's a valid gripe if Shifu was telling Tai Lung specifically that he would become the dragon warrior without any instigation by Tai Lung. From Tigress's perspective on things, it doesn't seem to be that way, and from Shifu's as well. To me, it seems it would be the sheer arrogance of Tai Lung and Shifu combined with his pride that he just naturally presumed the Dragon Warrior position would be his. Looking at the situation, I wouldn't like to say that Tai Lung's wrong about Shifu's behaviour. Maybe he did instill in him the idea to become the Dragon Warrior. But going off the evidence we have, Tai Lung never says that he explicitly did that, and so along with Tigress's account, you have to presume it was actually Tai Lung's idea. Either way though, even if your parent has told you that you'd become a big shot in the company they work for, and then their boss says no, I don't think anyone would think it's your parents' fault for you then terrorizing and attacking your local city. Of course, Shifu is responsible for how he raised him and not providing adequate discipline or curbing his arrogance, but saying that Tai Lung is excused of any responsibility, or worse, that he's justified, makes absolutely no sense. I've seen all sorts of comments outwardly stating that he did no wrong, how we don't even know whether he physically hurt these people, despite the fact that it is very heavily implied. Even if he didn't though, are we really saying it's okay to throw a temper tantrum and destroy people's homes and businesses because you didn't get the promotion your daddy said you'd get? Also, would they really throw somebody in his own personal prison with the strictest level of security if he didn't kill even a single person? I'm just coming to that realization now that yes, there is actually zero chance he didn't kill anybody. That's not all though. I've seen people say he's the most relatable character. The most relatable? Who are you? As far as the Valley of Peace is concerned, Tai Lung grew up pretty much as an adopted prince being raised in the Jade Palace, became a kung fu prodigy, and literally the first time he ever heard the words no, he started killing people. How can you possibly side with and think that these actions are reasonable or relatable? Sure, I mean having parents that put high expectations on you whilst at the same time not coming to your defense certainly isn't uncommon. I do think that this particular situation requires some perspective here. It's like saying somebody who shot up a school was super relatable because they got bullied. I know that sounds very dramatic, but I've genuinely seen arguments he did nothing wrong, and I think those particular people need to be put on a watch list. I do want to stress that having hurt feelings about parents not being in your corner or pushing you to absolute extremes is a reasonable reaction. Deciding then to commit mass murder? Not so much. The simping for Tai Lung does not stop there though, oh no. It extends into hypothetical battles or who would win scenarios where fans are genuinely delusional enough to think that Tai Lung would win every single fight. For starters, they're coming for my boy Po, which I just refuse to accept. What do you mean he won through plot armor? Do you mean the plot armor that allowed Tai Lung to swirl around a hill upside down and tied up, getting enough velocity to launch himself so high in the air across a canyon? Or do you mean the plot armor of using specific nerve techniques by hitting particular points that completely paralyze you after you've already lost in traditional martial arts? What about his escape where the rhinos cut the chain after he grabbed onto the attached stage, only for him to jump up a significant time later and knock them both out? I mean, how did he do that? There were no other surfaces or handholds for him to hang on to. But no, the panda who we've already seen previously be largely immune to nerve acupuncture has plot armor. The same panda that's been studying kung fu for as long as he could remember, even if he didn't get to practice it. The panda, you know, the animal which is later established as having a natural affinity for said martial art. To be perfectly honest, you could even argue that Po wasn't even really trying for the first half of their battle. That's probably a bad way to put it though. He was trying, but there wasn't much of a need for him to use traditional martial arts. He found solutions that fit with his personality, and then when Tai Lung continues to fight him after he earns the true contents of the scroll, Po absolutely schools him in something that Tai Lung is meant to be a prodigy at. Don't doubt my man Po. I won't hear of it. That's not even touching the surface of delusion though. I've seen it argued that Tai Lung would quote, mop the floor with death, as in the antagonist from Puss in Boots 2. Now I'm not saying that Tai Lung wouldn't put up a good fight, but to insinuate he would win? Isn't the dude a primordial being that literally cannot die? Plus he can conjure up flames, and he has two sides. He's literally death. It's not like his parents gave him an unfortunate name. What do you mean Tai Lung would win? What do you mean? If anything, he'd come to kill Tai Lung purely for being as arrogant as he was, just like he did for Puss, except somehow, I don't see Tai Lung coming to the same conclusions Puss did. He didn't when Po gave him his chance, and he didn't when Shifu took accountability. He could never accept that Po would be better than him, and I think that would hold true for anyone. I'm not done yet. There's also been hypotheticals about if Tai Lung was redeemed at the end of the first movie, then how would that impact the story going forward? Do you want to know what people thought? Well, that doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you anyway. These people genuinely believe that if everyone just forgave Tai Lung for killing numerous people and let him live in the Jade Palace again, going on endless adventures with Po and the Furious Five, that he would wipe the floor with every single opponent. They get this from one awesome breakout scene and him beating up the Furious Five one time, whilst also bending over backwards to say that Po's win is a riding cop-out and a reach at best. According to their logic, with Tai Lung on their side, they wouldn't even need to sneak into Shen City. Tai Lung could just wipe out everyone. Or if they somehow do end up in Shen's custody, like when Po inevitably freezes, Tai Lung wouldn't behave like those losers, the Furious Five, you know, the famed warriors that apparently suck at everything. He'd straight up attack and apprehend Lord Shen. No drama. I mean, I swear these guys sound like screenwriters from Pitch Meeting. Do they not remember that Shen killed a master and apprehended the other two? I'm not 100% on the lore around Shen's history with Kung Fu. I don't ever recall it being stated that he himself was a master, and it does seem somewhat counterintuitive that he wants to destroy anyone using Kung Fu but then uses it. But again, It could be so it's only for him and any possible descendants. He did come out of the spirit realm with all the other masters though, so maybe he is. Or the chameleon just really likes his style. In any case, it's obvious that Shen's capable enough to hold his own, and whilst Tai Lung could beat him in a fight, it's ridiculous to think that he just waltz in and win single-handedly. The dude was a prodigy in his local village. Let's calm down a bit. I've seen people debate about what Oogway said, that there was darkness in Tai Lung's heart and that's why he couldn't be the Dragon Warrior. Some people seem to be of the opinion that it was partially Oogway's fault that Tai Lung became the way he did because of what he said. Seriously? Are fans that blinded by their love of this bulky snow leopard that they can't attribute anything being his own fault? I'll grant you, if Oogway said that to his face, it's a bit harsh. However, we don't know if he actually did. All we get is Tigra saying that he saw darkness in his heart and so he refused. When Tai Lung's retelling the story, he doesn't mention that aspect. Instead, he focuses on the fact that Shifu didn't even disagree with Oogway and campaigned for his son. The whole darkness in the heart seemed to be something that would have been revealed later, or something that he told Shifu in private. I'm not saying he didn't say it, but there's no real clear evidence he did either. On top of that, wasn't he right? Once again, the first time this grown man is told no, he decides to punish innocents for not getting his way. Sure, buddy, that'll change Oogway's mind real quick. I'll grant you, telling somebody that their heart is dark and that's why they're not progressing is a bit harsh. But it's no reason to kill anyone. If anything, it's more of a reason not to. How are people claiming this as any sort of defense? Plus, we don't even really get to see what Tai Lung was like before it all happened. All we know is that he craved power and that Shifu was blinded by his love, that he refused to see the negative traits forming. He could have been an outright dick and we would have no idea. Oogway doesn't seem the malicious type. Not reading the room? Maybe. Torturing people he's close to with small aggravations under the guise of being all-knowing and wise? Yeah, sure. I just don't think we have enough information to go off that says that Oogway was nasty to Tai Lung, and even if he did say that, the actions are not equal. If anything, it seems like not only was Tai Lung arrogant, but a subsection of his fans are too. The whole idea that if people in your past wronged you justifies terrorizing and hurting others is wrong. Arguing he's better than all these other characters in every possible way completely ignores the point and treats him the same way as Shifu used to. The arrogance fans have in regards to what Tai Lung supposedly deserves is absurd. Being told no isn't a horrific act of injustice. The funny thing is that if Tai Lung had actually accepted Oogway's response and worked on himself, he would have found that he didn't need to be the Dragon Warrior to become a great master, and in turn, once he was no longer striving for the scroll, he most likely could have earned it. Tai Lung loved Kung Fu for the power and respect it earns him. That's why he wanted to become the Dragon Warrior. It's why he desired that worthy opponent in Po. He wanted to show off and get attention and praise for being the best. It wasn't a joy merely for practicing Kung Fu and thus he didn't appreciate it. At best, it was a tool for what he really wanted, admiration and power. Counterbalance that with Po, who can't help but be in awe of everybody who practices it. He just loves the art for what it is. Of course, he too wants to be admired, but it's in a healthy way, and it doesn't preclude him from seeing how others are great and how he can improve. Po, like Tai Lung, was ambitious. It's obvious he wished to be a Kung Fu warrior like his idols, the Furious Five, but he didn't let that cloud his judgment for being a good person. What I'm trying to say is that you can possess the qualities Tai Lung had: determination, ambition, passion, but how those are used can lead down very different roads. Having a painful or difficult upbringing doesn't just give you license to hurt others in return. It's good to understand what made Tai Lung and to learn from that like Shifu did. He himself tells Po in the first film that the mark of a true hero is humility. The takeaway from Tai Lung's story should not be that he's the strongest, most powerful warrior and look how hard done by he was. It's to look at where arrogance leads and where to find self-worth. The sheer need to prove how strong Tai Lung is or make out like he was this unstoppable force is not learning the lesson of the movie and only reinforces the villain POV, which is proven to be wrong. Taking his journey and applying this morality into the real world is truly a scary thought, and whilst people might think that this is just silly fandom debates, I wouldn't agree. People take moral lessons and understanding from movies all the time. For millennia, humans have learned how to live their lives based on stories that taught them how to think from another person's perspective, to expand their own empathy. Films are simply a natural progression of that, and so whenever I see a hyperfixation on a character and a desperate need to justify their actions, even when it's so clearly established why that character was wrong, I feel compelled to call it out. By all means, have fun with who would win and character analysis, but be careful about justifying atrocities and acting like it's no big deal. I too think the muscly snow leopard's really cool, but if I had to choose someone on my team, it would definitely be the big, fluffy panda. With all that being said though, these have been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of Tai Lung? Do you think he's the greatest of all time? Or do you think he's an angry man baby that deserved what he got? Maybe somewhere in between? I'm curious of your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.